AITA for leaving my husband and taking the kids to my parents after what he said to our daughter. You'll never amount to anything. You're just lazy and useless, just like your mother. Those words came out of my husband's mouth, aimed straight at our 13-year-old daughter. And I swear my whole body went cold. Our daughter froze, her little face crumbling right there at the dinner table. She didn't yell back. She didn't argue. She just sat there, wide-eyed, before pushing her plate away and running to her room. I sat in shock, staring at him. This was the man who had sworn to protect her, the man who was supposed to love her, the man I married. And he had just said something that I knew would carve itself into her heart forever. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay. I didn't say a word to him. I stood up from my chair, walked down the hall, and found our daughter sobbing in her room. I hugged her, told her it wasn't true, told her I loved her more than anything. And in that moment, I made a choice. I was leaving, and I was taking the kids with me. But before I could even pack a bag, I heard his heavy footsteps coming down the hallway. We weren't always like this. When I met my husband, he was charming, funny, the kind of man who could light up a room. We were young, broke, and a little reckless, but we built something together. Over the years, we had two beautiful kids, our daughter, now 13, and our younger son, who's 9. For a long time, I thought we were happy. He worked hard, provided for us, and I stayed home with the kids until they were old enough for school. We laughed a lot in the beginning. We had our little family traditions, Friday movie nights, summer road trips, Sunday pancakes. But somewhere along the line, things shifted. He became shorter with me, more critical, more withdrawn. Arguments that used to end with apologies started ending in silence, or worse, explosions. Still, I held on. I told myself it was stress, work, money, whatever excuse made it easier. I kept hoping the man I fell in love with would come back. But this, what he said to our daughter, that was a line you don't cross. After she ran upstairs, I sat there, staring at my plate. My son was still at the table, frozen, fork in hand. He looked between us, scared, confused. I whispered, "Go play in your room, honey." He didn't argue. He bolted. It was just me and my husband then. He looked at me like he was daring me to say something. His jaw tight, his fist clenched on the table. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I finally said, my voice shaking. "She needed to hear it," he snapped. "You coddle her too much. She's spoiled, lazy, she doesn't listen. She's 13. I yelled, louder than I've ever yelled in my life. "She's a kid, and you just told her she's useless? She has to toughen up. The world isn't gonna baby her." I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. This wasn't tough love. This was cruelty. He stood up, his chair screeching across the floor, and that's when I grabbed my daughter's door handle, terrified he'd barge in and say more. I blocked the doorway with my body, and that's when he said, low and sharp, "If you keep standing between me and my kids, you're going to regret it. If you keep standing between me and my kids, you're going to regret it." Those words echoed in my head like a siren. My back was pressed against our daughter's door, my hands shaking, but I didn't move. I stared at him, searching his face for the man I married, but all I saw was rage. Cold, hard rage. "Do you even hear yourself?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just shook his head like I was the problem, like I was some obstacle in his way. Then he stormed down the hall, grabbed his keys, and slammed the front door so hard the picture frames rattled on the walls. The house was silent. I pushed into my daughter's room. She was curled up in bed, knees to her chest, red-faced from crying. When she saw me, she tried to wipe her tears like she was embarrassed. I sat on the edge of her bed and pulled her close. "Sweetheart, listen to me. You're not useless. You're not lazy. You are wonderful. You are smart. You are everything to me." Her voice cracked when she said, "Why does Dad hate me?" I felt something inside me shatter. How do you answer that? How do you explain to a child that sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who do the most damage? I told her the only thing I could. He doesn't hate you. He's wrong. He's very, very wrong. But as I said it, I realized I didn't even believe my own words anymore. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every headlight outside made me tense, waiting for him to come home. He finally stumbled in after midnight, smelling like alcohol. He didn't say a word, just crashed onto the couch and started snoring. The kids were both asleep, and I sat alone in the dark kitchen, staring at the packed lunches I had made earlier. That's when the decision solidified in my chest like concrete. I had to leave. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about them. Our daughter, who had been crushed under his words, and our son, who had sat there at the table watching it all, too scared to speak. They deserved better. I deserved better. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee, flipped through his phone, even hummed while he poured cereal for our son. I watched him, stunned at how easily he could slip into normal. But my daughter wouldn't come down. She stayed in her room, the door shut tight. I told him, "You owe her an apology." He looked up, frowning. "For what?" That's when I realized he wasn't sorry. He didn't even think he had done anything wrong. Later, while he was outside mowing the lawn, I went into my room, grabbed an old suitcase from the closet, and started filling it with clothes for the kids. My hands moved fast, almost automatically, like my body already knew what my mind was still trying to process. I stuffed in pajamas, school uniforms, toothbrushes, favorite toys. I tucked my daughter's worn-out teddy bear into the corner of the bag, because I knew she'd need it. My son walked in, confused. "Mom, why are you packing?" I bent down, my heart aching. "We're going to visit Grandma and Grandpa for a little while." His eyes lit up. He didn't ask questions. To him, It was just an adventure. To me, it was escape. I zipped up the bag, shoved it under the bed, and waited for the right moment. But that moment came sooner than I expected. Because that evening, while the kids were upstairs, my husband came into the kitchen, leaned against the counter, and said something that made my blood run cold. I saw you moving stuff around earlier. You planning on leaving me? I saw you moving stuff around earlier. You planning on leaving me? The way he said it made my stomach twist. His voice wasn't loud, but there was something in it, a sharpness, a challenge, that scared me more than yelling ever could. I froze by the sink, dish towel in my hand. My heart was pounding so loud, I was sure he could hear it. Why would you say that? I asked carefully. He narrowed his eyes. Don't play dumb with me. I know you. I know when you're up to something. And you've been acting strange since dinner the other night. I gripped the counter behind me, trying to stay calm. I was cleaning. That's all. He took a step closer. You think I'm stupid? I swallowed hard. For a moment, I thought he might open the bedroom door, look under the bed, and find a half-packed suitcase. But then he smirked like he had caught me in some game and said, you better not be thinking of running off with my kids. Because if you do, you'll regret it. The rest of the evening was unbearable. He hovered around me, making comments that sounded normal on the surface, but carried sharp edges underneath. Dinner's good tonight. Guess you remember how to cook. You're quiet. What you plotting? Kids look happy. Be a shame if they had to grow up without their father around. My son didn't notice. He laughed at cartoons and played with his Legos. But my daughter noticed everything. I could feel her eyes flicking between us at the table, reading the tension in the air like a book. When bedtime came, she pulled me aside and whispered, Mom, I don't feel safe here. That was the breaking point. The moment my resolve hardened into steel. We were leaving, no matter what. The next few days, I played along. I smiled when he joked. I made dinner. I pretended nothing was wrong. But inside, I was making plans. I called my parents when he was at work, told them everything. My mom's voice cracked over the phone. She said, pack what you can. Come here. We'll protect you. Hearing those words felt like oxygen after drowning. But it also made me realize how dangerous this was. If he caught me, if he suspected I was really going through with it, I didn't know what he might do. So I waited. It was a Wednesday night when I decided the time had come. He had mentioned working late the next day. That would give me a window. Just a few hours, but enough to grab the kids, load the car, and get to my parents' house. That night, I tucked the kids in, kissed their foreheads, and whispered, tomorrow we're going on a little trip, okay? Don't say anything to Dad yet. It's a surprise. My daughter's eyes widened with hope. She nodded silently. My son just grinned, already thinking about Grandma's cookies. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my heart racing. Tomorrow, everything would change. But then, at 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I sat up listening. My husband wasn't supposed to be home this early. The footsteps stopped right outside our bedroom door. And then I heard the unmistakable sound of something being dragged across the floor. The sound outside the door made every muscle in my body tense. Something heavy was being dragged slowly across the floor. I held my breath, straining to listen. Then silence. My heart was hammering. I slid quietly out of bed, careful not to wake the kids, and pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. Just stillness. I opened the door a crack. The hallway was dark, shadows stretching long under the dim night light. And then I saw it. A chair. One of our dining chairs. He had dragged it from the kitchen and placed it right outside our bedroom door. And he was sitting in it, wide awake, staring straight ahead. I froze, my throat dry. His eyes flicked toward me, and a crooked smile tugged at his mouth. Couldn't sleep either, he said softly. I shut the door before I could even think. My hand was shaking. He was guarding us, watching us, like he knew, like he was waiting. I slid back into bed and pulled the blanket over me, but I didn't close my eyes the rest of the night. The next morning, he was gone. The chair sat empty in the hallway, pushed against the wall like nothing had happened. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it, but I knew I hadn't. He had been there, watching, testing me. I made breakfast, my hands trembling as I flipped pancakes. The kids ate quietly. My daughter kept glancing at me, her eyes asking what I wasn't saying. When he finally walked into the kitchen, he acted completely normal. Smells good, he said, kissing the top of my head like he hadn't terrified me hours before. I forced a smile, but inside I was screaming. All day at work, he texted me. Little things. How are the kids? Don't forget the mail. Miss you. To anyone else, they were ordinary messages. But to me, they felt like surveillance. Like reminders that he was always watching. When he got home, he was cheerful. Too cheerful. He joked with our son, asked our daughter about school. He laughed easily, touched my back when he passed by me. It was all wrong. Forced. Like a mask he had put on. And that's when I realized. He knew. He didn't have proof, but he knew I was planning something. And he was daring me to go through with it. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. My mind kept circling the same thought. Tomorrow. Tomorrow had to be the day. I couldn't wait any longer. So when he left for work the next morning, I moved fast. I pulled the suitcase from under the bed, stuffed in everything else I could grab, and told the kids to get ready. My daughter was pale but determined. My son was bouncing with excitement, clueless about the weight of what we were doing. I loaded them into the car, my heart racing. Every second felt like it was dragging. Every sound made me jump, thinking he had doubled back. Finally, everything was in. Bags, kids, keys in the ignition. And just as I was about to pull out of the driveway, his truck turned the corner and pulled in. His truck pulled into the driveway just as I was shifting into reverse. My stomach dropped. The kids didn't notice at first. My son was humming to himself, my daughter staring out the window. But when he stepped out of the truck, slamming the door so hard it echoed, they both froze. He stood there in the driveway, hands on his hips, staring at the packed car like he already knew everything. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. For a split second, I thought about flooring it, just driving past him, out of the neighborhood, not looking back. But my daughter whispered, "Mom," in this tiny, trembling voice, and my hands froze. He walked slowly to my window and leaned down. His face was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that made my chest ache with fear. "Going somewhere?" he asked. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Just taking the kids to my parents for a visit." He smirked, shaking his head. "Without telling me? With the car packed full? Come on, do you think I'm stupid?" The kids were dead silent in the back seat. My son's eyes were wide. My daughter's hand was gripping mine so tightly it hurt. "I need space," I whispered. "We need space." His expression hardened. "No, what you need is to stop filling their heads with nonsense. They're my kids too. You don't get to just run off with them." Every muscle in my body screamed at me to get out of there. But then he leaned closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "You leave this house, and I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." For a long moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped. Just me, him, and the kids frozen in the car. Then from the back seat, my daughter did something that shocked us both. She spoke. Her voice was shaky, but steady enough to cut through the tension. "Dad," she said, her eyes locked on him through the window. "If you don't let us go, I'm going to tell Mom what you told me last week." His head snapped toward her, his face draining of color. And that's when I realized there was something I didn't know. Something even worse than what he had already said. The car was silent, except for the sound of my daughter's words hanging in the air. He stared at her, his jaw tight, his hands curling into fists at his sides. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. "What did he say to you?" I whispered, turning to her. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, he slammed his hand on the hood of the car, making us all jump. "Don't," he snapped, his voice cracking. "Don't you dare." And that's when I knew, whatever secret my daughter was holding, it was the one thing powerful enough to shatter everything.